You buy a $5 coffee, hand your card to the barista, and the screen spins around asking if you would like to leave an 18, 22, or 30% tip. For a drink you ordered yourself, made in under 60 seconds, that you are picking up yourself from the same counter you are standing at. If you have felt a flash of genuine irritation at that screen recently, you are not being cheap, and you are not alone. Something has actually changed, measurably, and it happened faster than almost any other shift in consumer behavior in recent memory. Let's start with where this even came from, because tipping in America has a stranger and more uncomfortable history than most people realize. Tipping originated in feudal Europe and was actually declining there by the early 1900s, seen increasingly as a symbol of aristocratic condescension. It took hold in America instead and expanded dramatically in the decades after the Civil War, largely in industries employing newly freed black workers, including railroad porters and restaurant staff. Employers used tipping as a justification to pay these workers little or nothing directly, shifting the cost of their wages onto customers instead. This is not a minor historical footnote. It directly created the legal structure still in place today. That structure is called the tipped minimum wage, and it still exists at the federal level right now. The federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. The federal tipped minimum wage, for workers who regularly receive tips, is $2.13 an hour, a number that has not changed since 1991. Employers are legally required to make up the difference if tips do not bring a worker up to the full minimum wage. But enforcement of that requirement is notoriously weak, and wage theft investigations regularly find restaurants failing to actually do this. This is the entire reason tipping exists as an expectation rather than a bonus in American service industries. You are not tipping as a reward for good service in the way most people assume. You are functionally subsidizing a wage that federal law allows employers to avoid paying directly. Now, here is where it gets specifically infuriating for anyone who has noticed prompts appearing in places that never used to have them. This expansion has a name among researchers who study it: tip creep. And it is not something you are imagining or exaggerating. The technology is the actual mechanism driving this, and it is worth understanding exactly how. Traditional cash registers and card machines used to have a fixed set of functions. Modern point-of-sale systems, the tablet-based checkout screens that exploded in popularity, especially after the pandemic, are built by companies whose entire business model depends on transaction volume and, in many cases, a cut of tips processed through their platform. Square, one of the largest of these companies, builds tip prompts directly into its default checkout flow. A business owner setting up the system does not need to decide to add a tipping option. It is frequently on by default, and turning it off requires actively digging into settings most small business owners never touch. The technology did not respond to a demand from consumers wanting to tip more places. It created the prompt, and the prompt created the new normal. Research backs this up directly. A Pew Research Center survey found that 72% of Americans believe tipping is now expected in more places than it was 5 years ago. That is not a vague cultural feeling. That is a measured, dramatic shift in a very short window of time, and it lines up almost exactly with the mass adoption of these tablet checkout systems starting around 2020 and 2021. Here is the part that reveals something even more uncomfortable about how this actually functions psychologically. Those suggested tip percentages you see on the screen, the 18, 20, 25% options, are not neutral defaults. Behavioral economists who study this call it anchoring, and the research is consistent. When you show someone a suggested percentage, even one they consider slightly high, they are statistically far more likely to select something close to it than if left to calculate a tip from scratch. Companies designing these checkout systems know this. Some have been caught quietly, increasing their default suggested percentages over time, watching average tip amounts rise as a direct result, with no corresponding increase in service quality, because there often was no meaningful service being rendered in the first place beyond handing over a pre-made item. Now, the honest complication in this entire conversation, the part that makes it genuinely uncomfortable rather than simple, Many actual tipped workers, servers in full-service restaurants specifically, are not overpaid by this system. They are frequently underpaid by it in a way most customers do not fully see. A Bureau of Labor Statistics review of the restaurant industry shows that when total income is calculated, including tips, many servers in busy, higher-end restaurants can earn a solid income, sometimes exceeding what a fixed hourly wage would provide. But this varies enormously by location, by restaurant type, and critically, by day of the week and shift, meaning income for the exact same worker can swing wildly from a slow Tuesday lunch to a busy Saturday night with zero income stability in between. Workers in that traditional restaurant tipping model are not the ones benefiting from tip creep at the coffee counter. The self-checkout kiosk asking you for a tip is not funding a struggling server's rent. In many cases, there is no employee involved in that transaction at all, and the tip prompt exists purely because the technology made adding it effortless and profitable for the platform processing the payment. This is where the real frustration people feel actually comes from, and it is a legitimate one, not just stinginess. The original moral logic of tipping, however flawed its history, was built around the idea of directly rewarding a specific person for service rendered to you. When that same prompt appears at a self-checkout machine, a to-go coffee counter, or a retail store with no traditional service component at all, the entire justification collapses, but the social pressure and screen design remain identical. You are being asked to perform an act with the visual and psychological structure of tipping without the underlying relationship that originally justified it. There is a genuine economic argument that this entire system needs restructuring, and it is not a fringe opinion. Several states, including California, Nevada, and others, have banned the sub-minimum tipped wage entirely, requiring employers to pay the full standard minimum wage regardless of tips received. Comparative research on these states has found no significant negative impact on restaurant employment or menu prices compared to states that kept the lower tipped wage, directly challenging the industry argument that eliminating it would force businesses to raise prices dramatically or cut jobs. Several European countries operate with service included in the listed price and minimal or no tipping expectation at all, and their service industries continue to function without customers being asked to make wage-subsidizing decisions at every checkout screen they encounter. So what do you actually do with this information the next time that screen spins around at you? There is no universally agreed answer, and pretending there is one would be dishonest. Some people choose to tip generously anywhere prompted, treating it as a small redistribution regardless of who specifically receives it. Some people choose to tip only where actual table service or a comparable personal service was provided, and decline the prompt anywhere else without guilt. Neither choice is objectively wrong, because the system asking you to make this decision was never designed with a clear, consistent moral logic in the first place. It was built, piece by piece, from a post-slavery wage avoidance loophole layered on top of decades of restaurant industry lobbying to keep that loophole intact, and then accelerated recently by payment technology companies who profit every time that screen successfully gets you to tap a higher percentage. The awkward pause you feel staring at that spinning screen is not a personal failing. It is the entirely reasonable reaction of someone being asked to solve, one transaction at a time, a structural wage problem that has existed in this country for over a century, using a system that was quietly redesigned in just the last few years to expand into places it never used to reach.